Smiggy, we're back.
Ryan! Yeah, we're here. We
How you
made
been?
it. I'm good, man.
It's been a long time.
It has been a crazy train of a ride indeed, hasn't it?
It has. Not to get too much into it, but both of our lives have been very busy. And yeah, we're back. We're back to it. We had to take the entire month off, so nothing in August. But the good news is we got to listen to a lot of music. We got a lot of stuff on the backlog that we're going to make episodes on. And yeah, we're back to it. And we're
Ryan
kicking
missed his wife's
things off.
birthday for this specifically. So if you guys don't watch this episode or like, comment, subscribe, all of the 2010 YouTube things or whatever, Ryan's gonna lose his marriage. That's on you guys.
You heard it. You heard it here. We're kicking things off, though, with Black Sabbath. So a few weeks ago, as of now recording this, we unfortunately lost one of the absolute most legendary vocalists in the rock and metal world, Ozzy. We just thought it would be nice to do some kind of tribute to Ozzy Osbourne because of his impact and influence on the genre and just everything else that he's done, which I'm sure we'll get into in the podcast. But yeah, we went back and listened to Black Sabbath's very first album that they debuted and came out with. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So Smigs, how do you feel about everything that happened with Ozzy? I mean, obviously not good, but like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the passing of an absolute legend. Granted, he was at the age where anything could have taken him at that point, and not to take the obvious low hanging fruit. But if we think of the way COVID started, Ozzy was kind of the originator of fucking around with bats, wasn't he? Were we in the first 2 minutes? I'm gonna have to remember to edit that out. But he was kind of the originator of messing around with bats. So not only a pioneer within the metal world, but within social media trends as well. So, you know, his passing, very tragic. Ozzy was an entertainer in every facet of his life. I don't know if you ever watched the Meet the Osbourne show.
Oh yeah.
But he was that was it right there. We could have stopped sitcoms there, or reality TV, whatever you want to call it. I guess it was kind of a mix of both, wasn't it? But I that man was still on so many drugs during that show. It was, which is not good. Like, you don't want to encourage that, but it does make you wonder that without the drugs and the, you know, drug, sex, rock and roll, essentially, if he would have been the same Ozzy that we know him as now. And even to the point where I believe he ended up doing a show with his son. It was like a ghost hunting show or something.
Yeah, I saw the show with his son. I'm pretty sure it was like on History Channel or something like that.
Yeah.
I actually never watched that one, but I saw the commercials for it when it was on.
Or maybe it was the ghost, or not. I always confuse these because I think his son had the ghost hunting show, and then they did like a travel across the world show. I just remember seeing Ozzy in a tank. It's like, I don't think we need to give the Prince of Darkness a reason, but aside from all of that, you know, obviously it's super tragic because he was an entertainer. He was an absolute legend and a pioneer in the metal world. And something that I actually just found out while researching for this episode is assuredly common knowledge. Like, I knew Ozzy obviously left or got removed from Black Sabbath at some point, but what I didn't realize is that he got fired from Black Sabbath in 1979. Like, pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Considering their first album was 1970, but when you look at how many albums they put out with him, and when you look at the band's lifespan, how long they were actually together, he wasn't around. Like, he was around for a little bit, but definitely not the majority.
Right. And they, like, I don't want to say struggled without him necessarily, but if you read even just the wiki, the base level information, right? Like, they cycled through a ton of band members after him, vocalists, a bunch of stuff. They essentially at one point became Deep Purple too.
Yeah.
They just had like a bunch of old Deep Purple band members, which I didn't know. But yeah. Go ahead.
He was replaced by Ronnie James Dio at one point, which I think he's also one of the greatest vocalists in rock and metal. Yeah. Dio is just incredible. I know he had a band called Rainbow, which had Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple as well. So all these guys were like intertwined at one point. But if you never heard the song Stargazer by Rainbow, absolute classic. One of the best songs in the genre, if you ask me. Okay. But I've actually, as much as I like Dio, because I've listened to a lot of his solo albums, I had like a Dio's Greatest Hits CD when I was younger. I've never listened to his stuff in Black Sabbath. I think after we do this episode, I kind of want to go and listen to some Dio Black Sabbath stuff just to see what it sounds like.
Yeah, it would be interesting because one of the things I've written down here is there's nothing about Ozzy at the surface that makes him any more special than any other vocalist that we've heard. Like, is his voice the most angelic thing you've ever heard? Or, whatever appropriate word you would want to use to describe a metal vocalist being perfection. No, not really. Are the lyrics that he sings anything that is mind-blowingly creative that Neil deGrasse Tyson would sit there and have to do a 30-minute bullshit theory on? No, it's absolutely not. And Black Sabbath as a whole, are they even necessarily a band where anything that they put together is like, wow, I don't think the Panteras, the Avenged Sevenfolds, the Sleep Tokens of the world now, those bands could put this music together in the modern day for sure. But there was something about it, and maybe it was because they were one of the first to ever do it, or because Ozzy was kind of the top of the mountain, the epitome of that sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle. Like, I made a comment earlier to you while we were before we were recording that people are just playing a different game now, necessarily, talking about our friend coming into Discord with his girlfriend while they're hanging out, which any of our younger viewers, please God, don't do that. Pay attention to your loved ones. But that was all good. They were fine. But I think that Ozzy can be the Michael Jordan of the origins of metal without having to be the out and out GOAT overall for it. Because again, like you said, their first album was in the 70s, or was in 1970. And he just had he doesn't hit a severe range in notes necessarily, right? He doesn't do harsh screams. He doesn't do anything overly melodic. But he just puts such a beautifully correct inflection on his words, and he understands the instrumentals that are happening behind him and is able to fit it within the rhythm of the drum beat, of the guitars, this, that, the other. So while the band as a whole, and Ozzy specifically, I don't think they do anything overly perfect. It all is just at such a 7 out of 10 consistently really good level that especially for the time, it is very easy to see how they ended up being pioneers of it.
Yeah, and something that I had to remember when I was listening to this is it did come out in February 1970, and try to put yourself in the shoes of maybe what was popular at the time, even in the rock world. So you had the Beatles putting out their very last album. And the Beatles, they experimented with a little bit of heavier stuff like Helter Skelter, but in general, the Beatles aren't considered a heavy band. They can be considered rock or pop rock or whatever. But
they experimented with Helen Keller.
Did I say that?
No, you didn't.
I meant to say Helter Skelter.
No.
Okay. You had me worried for a second. Okay. Anyway, they experiment with stuff like Helter Skelter, but their overall music, you might consider it rock or pop rock, but it's not heavy or anything like that. You had other people experimenting with it, like the Who, but that Flower Power, Woodstock was in 1969. The hippie movement, all that stuff was going on. And then in early 1970, that first song, Black Sabbath from the album, it comes in with that doom metal riff that no one's heard before. And there's the thunder and lightning sound effects. And he's singing about this black figure standing at his bed, dragging him to hell. It's just this was on another level. It came out of nowhere when music like this wasn't being made yet. So I can definitely see being in that era and hearing this for the first time and just being completely blown away.
So here's a question then that I just thought of on the fly, because my brain be working a little different like that. Do you think, because whenever we did the Avenged Sevenfold album, something we both agreed on was that for a bit, and maybe even to some extent still, Avenged Sevenfold had a grunge and an edge to them that was almost too cringy, for lack of a better word, where it was that angsty teenage, black eyeliner and being edgy for the sake of being edgy. Do you think, now I don't think that Black Sabbath was being edgy for the sake of being edgy. I think they just thought of a really good theme. I think a lot of them, while maybe not Satanists or, stuff like that, I think that they were kind of living this dark path of a life, especially Ozzy, again, that sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. But do you think if they would debut now, and I know it's hard to separate the thoughts of Ozzy and Black Sabbath from what they are. But if you think that they were brand new right now in 2025, do you think that they would potentially not even come close to the atmospheric popularity that they hit? Because there is so much of that dark grunge now that's singing about Satan, that, you know, all of the things that their music encompasses, because there's a saturation of that now. So do you think Black Sabbath would have ever stood a chance if they came out now?
No, and I think they do have that advantage of being the first. I mean, I really do think these guys like pioneered heavy metal. People have said that before. Sometimes people say, no, Led Zeppelin did it or this and that. And I get there is influences beforehand, but I do think these guys are the reason that heavy metal ended up getting more popular. So if you took this exact album and put it out today for the first time, probably not. I kind of just, when it comes to what you said about Ozzy's voice and everything like that, I do think that would still make them stand out. I think his voice, even though, I don't know, it's just so unique. As soon as you hear him sing, you're like, that's Ozzy. Like, I know exactly who that is. I don't think there's many other singers that sound like him. Maybe people who try to impersonate him or something like that. But yeah, I don't think it would hit the popularity that they ended up getting, because I know this one wasn't like super critically acclaimed when it came out. It was later on when they started to get really, really noticed. So it wasn't even this album that like launched them to the status that they're at. But yeah, if it ended up coming out today, it might get some attention, but yeah, definitely not to the level that it ended up in the first place.
Yeah, and I think there is something to be said about you do recognize Ozzy's voice no matter what, which is crazy because it's obviously very well known that Ozzy is British, but it's so and I guess, like you mentioned the Beatles earlier, it's so easy to kind of forget that when he sings. Specifically when he talks, it is well, you can't understand a damn thing he says when he talks, to be fair, but through the drunken, drug fueled ramblings of an old man, that British accent obviously comes back out when he speaks. But when he sings, I wonder like what the thought there is, whether it is as simple as appeasing American audiences because Hollywood, this, that, the other, right? We're kind of the hub for that, I guess, for better or worse, or if it's just that creates a better product or whatever it is. But whatever it is, Ozzy does certainly stand out. And something that I put here, it is weird because you do have to look through the lens of understanding that this was the flagship album for black metal, for death metal, for heavy metal, for anything beyond normal hardcore metal, where I wrote that it doesn't overcomplicate the formula. Like I said, there's nothing about Ozzy's voice, there's nothing about the instrumentals that go stupid on the beat, but everything is just at such a consistently really good, clean level. And again, we're listening to the 2014, or at least I did listen to the 2014 remaster, which, whatever, like that's probably the equivalent of the quality expected when it first came out, just to today's standards. But I said they don't overcomplicate the formula, but I almost wonder if I'm wrong there, because there really wasn't a formula for this kind of music yet, where there was probably the ripping of power chords in the back and maybe some harsher lyrics or this, that, the other. But I mean, lyrically, it bounces back and forth between almost satanic worship and then a song that we'll get into later that I think was probably my favorite, which is called The Wizard. It is almost the antithesis to that, while at the same time still carrying some dark undertones. And I said they still added their own flavor to things. Like there's a song that has a fucking harmonica in it. That's cool. How many bands are going to do that nowadays? Like you see some banjos and some other things played in there, but I love it when bands add non-traditional elements instrumentally into their music, and to do it at such a young age in the metal scene, I think does help it stand out. So I wrote they don't overcomplicate the formula, but I think I might just be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you're right when you're saying like a formula didn't exist. And I remember, because for anyone listening, Smigs and I, we really do wait to discuss the albums until we're on the podcast right here. We might say small things like, oh, I'm enjoying this is just okay, or, you know, small things that we notice here and there. I remember messaging you and saying that aside from, because I'd heard Black Sabbath before, I'd heard the song NIB, but I hadn't really heard the other ones that were on the album. I was surprised because Black Sabbath and NIB, I would say, are the two darkest songs on the album. NIB is about like Satan falling in love with a woman and like trying to change his ways or something like that. But when I heard the other songs, it reminded me of early Led Zeppelin. And I'm not even saying that in a bad way, but early Led Zeppelin was very blues heavy, so blues inspired. They had the harmonicas as well. Jimmy Page, even though he doesn't like to take credit for it, some people say that Led Zeppelin also influenced the direction that heavy metal was going. And like Robert Plant's like, no, not us. We don't have anything. But if you listen to their stuff with like you said, the heavy power chords, the crazy guitar solos, Led Zeppelin was doing that as well. I think like the year prior. So yeah, that's like the closest thing I can compare it to. But when you look at the two unique standout songs to me, which are Black Sabbath, NIB, and I do like The Wizard. That's a good one. Yeah, those are the standout ones to me that were unique for the time. So where you're saying like maybe they followed a formula, but maybe looking back on it, there was no formula at the time. Like they might have been setting the formula, setting the standard going forward. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned NIB, because I'm just going to jump right into the lyrical section. I put down two songs, and I don't know that these are necessarily my favorite lyrics or anything. I don't know that I necessarily have favorite lyrics from these. I don't think anything's bad. There just wasn't anything that overly stood out to me. But I think these two, like I said earlier, are a great contrast to each other. And it's lyrics from The Wizard, and it's lyrics from NIB. Because like you said, most of the songs are that the dark lyrics. They're supposed to make you think, they're supposed to be that edgy, I hate to keep using satanic, but I think that's honestly just the most appropriate word.
Get to that later. Yeah.
So I think these two contrast each other pretty well. But so to jump into The Wizard, first off, I thought The Wizard kind of like, it fits their style for sure, like instrumentally and the composition of it all, but it has a different lyrical meaning than usual. And what I learned is that bassist Geezer Butler said that this song was inspired by Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, which is just hilarious. Which is just hilarious once I get into the deeper meaning of what is assumed to be the meaning of the song. But basically, the idea is that it's a wizard who uses, and I'm doing air quotes for audio listeners, magic to make those around him like filled with joy, happiness, whatever. The idea is to dispel the evil, turns tears into joy and rain into sunshine. But it never specifically states how the magic is affecting people. So some of the theories are, you can go the happy route where it's just sunshine and rainbows out your ass and pot of gold at the end of it. Or you can think of it in almost too realistic of a sense where the wizard was the band's drug dealer. Just giving you that temporary feeling of happiness, a mysterious figure who brings temporary happiness to the people he encounters. So to get into the lyrics from The Wizard are, sun is shining, clouds have gone by, all the people give a happy sigh, he has passed by giving his sign, left all the people feeling so fine. So I could be a drug dealer. That could be a drug. I would never admit to having taken drugs in my past, but if I did in college and for a bit thereafter, my dealer would have given me the same feeling of temporary release from reality. So while that is a happier meaning, bringing joy and whatnot to people, it's not the happiest outcome of things that lead to addiction, drugs being one of the main reasons Ozzy got kicked out of the band in the first place. So it's a burrito of sadness wrapped in a happy tortilla, I guess. But so they tried to break the mold a little bit there, but then to go directly into the lyrics from NIB, where there's no mistaking it, right? Like that is one of the darker songs on the album. It says, oh yeah, now I have you with me under my power. Our love grows stronger now with every hour. Look into my eyes, you'll see who I am. That's crazy. The lyric just played in my ear right now. It's playing right now. Damn it. For anybody who doesn't remember, I always play the album in my ear and it doesn't come through on the recording every time. These lyrics are literally coming through. So again, it's, oh yeah, now I have you with me under my power. Our love grows stronger now with every hour. Look into my eyes, you'll see who I am. My name is Lucifer. Please take my hand. My name is Lucifer. Please take my hand. You don't get more direct than that.
Yeah. So I never knew about the wizard. I knew the wizard was inspired by Lord of the Rings, and my nerdy little brain was like, that's awesome. These guys are nerds. They read Lord of the Rings. And you talking about the drug dealer comparison is hilarious. And I will say Gandalf did smoke a lot of pipe weed. Yeah, Gandalf and Bilbo, they smoked a lot. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past it having a double meaning. But, yeah, the contrasting things about the two, where one could be seen as a happy song, the next one is literally talking about Lucifer. And do you see it as any surprise that they were marked as a satanic band after you read some of the lyrics and listened to the songs?
Ryan, based on the idea that they made this very happy-go-lucky song about a wizard going to Mordor. Yeah, fucking, my God, if there was ever a band to get, and I almost said the unfortunate label, but it's the label they wanted, right? Like, you can't really say that they didn't want it. Yeah, go ahead.
So Bill Ward, their drummer, wrote a lot of the songs, including Black Sabbath, from what I read. And I want everyone to take things with a grain of salt, because I realize with some of these classic bands that have so much lore behind them, there might be a common story that people believe to be true at one point, and then there's a lot of actually. So this is just what I've heard, okay? Bill Ward actually got into like occult and satanic things. He said he moved into a new house and painted his walls black, stuck up upside down crosses everywhere in the house. And then he woke up and saw this hooded figure at his bed, and it scared him to death. And that was all. He was done with his satanic occult stuff. He's like, I'm over this. And then he wrote the song Black Sabbath about the figure standing at his bed. And, so that was the end of that. As far as I know, most of them grew up Catholic. I'm not saying that they stuck with it, but I'm just saying I don't think any of them had a satanic background or anything. From what I read, when they released the album, I think it was on the inside cover of the album, or maybe it was on the vinyl itself, but someone at the label stuck an upside down cross on there. And because of that, because of the lyrics of Black Sabbath and NIB, which NIB, I don't know what it stands for. The rumor was it stood for Nativity in Black. And they just said that's not true, because they were talking about they were trying to spin it as like, oh no, it's supposed to be about the devil becoming a better person. It's not a satanic song. But because of all of these things, when this album came to America, the Satanic Church was basically like, these guys are it. They're our spokespeople. And they became associated with Satanism because of their lyrics, because of no one had heard like a doom metal song before. Like the song Black Sabbath was the first. So because of the way it sounded, because of the imagery and the lyrics and things like that, they got branded as a satanic band, and I don't think any of them were happy about it. Like they were like, we don't want to be known as like satanic.
So one, I just looked it up, and this is the Google AI overview, so take it with as many grains of salt as you would like. But it does say that it was not Nativity in Black, although they did later use that for things, or at least it was imposed by fans more often than not. But it was apparently an inside joke by the band referring to drummer Bill Ward's goatee, which resembled a pen nib, N-I-B, which is just the part of the pen that like is writing, like the part that makes contact with the paper. So... And then it says that bassist. It just said bassist Geezer Butler added the periods to make it look more mysterious. So they might have just thrown that on there and then added the periods to make people think, which is brilliant marketing especially for the time. I am gonna call massive bullshit on not wanting the satanic thing, though. I mean, maybe that's true for some of them, and maybe overall that could be true, especially if you go like an example. When I was in college, one of the people that we were friends didn't live in our place, but one of the people we were friends with was like, I'm going to bring over a Ouija board tonight. I was like, no, you're not. The hell you are. I'm not even like religious like that anymore. And you're not going to do that. The devil is not welcome in this house. we're not going to fuck around and find a spirit by accident. We're not going to allow that to happen. I'll throw you and the board out the window. I don't care. So if he had that kind of eye-opening awakening to it all and wanted to step away from it, I do believe that. But I'm not going to sit here and be told that they didn't want that satanic label, because if you truly didn't, then you're just brain dead and or at least ignorant to the product that you were putting out, right? Because I'll believe it, because you can only believe a man or a woman in their word, but I'm not going to sit here and believe overall that they were shying away from it to that extent, because just listen to the lyrics, period.
So quick thing about my history with Ozzy Osbourne, and I'll try to make it fast. The first thing I ever saw Ozzy in was The Osbournes, the TV show. I was pretty young when that came out. I mean, I was in elementary school still when The Osbournes happened, so I just remember seeing this crazy, funny guy on TV with his family. Couldn't believe some of the antics, whatever. That was Ozzy to me. Fast forward a couple years, Guitar Hero 1 comes out. So I'm at my uncle's house with my brother. We're playing Guitar Hero all night. It gets to a song called Bark at the Moon. And it said, as made famous by Ozzy Osbourne. And I went, like the guy from the TV show? And that's when they had to explain to me, well, before the TV show, he did this. And I remember my little kid brain saying, but this doesn't sound like him at all. Like, how can he sing like this and talk this way? And I got kind of, I'm not going to say obsessed, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've heard all of Ozzy Osbourne songs and everything, but I was super interested in Ozzy after that. It's like, this guy's awesome. He's so funny on the TV show and crazy and an amazing singer. And I never heard music like that before, really. So my brother ended up buying me a Ozzy Osbourne Greatest Hits CD, listened to all that. And it kind of went from there. Like then listening to Black Sabbath, I read Ozzy's autobiography. And this is why I'm telling this, because in high school, I read his autobiography and I'm realizing high school was like over 10 years ago for me now. So again, I'm trying to remember the stuff. But he did say that him and Black Sabbath, they wanted to do something different. They just didn't know what. And they decided that they were going to try to write scary music. That's how he described it, is we want to write something that sounds scary. So, which is when they ended up writing Black Sabbath. So I think Black Sabbath and NIB, yeah, those count as like the scary. Maybe it didn't help with them. If they really didn't want to be labeled as satanic, maybe they should have chose different lyrical content if they just wanted to write scary music. I can see what you mean about like, come on, you write that kind of music.
My name is Lucifer. Please take my hand.
So yeah, they did say they wanted to write scary stuff, but I don't know if they actually wanted to be labeled as satanic. I believe them on the one hand because, again, I have not heard every single Black Sabbath song, but I did listen to the second album that they put out after this one. I don't think there were any kind of lyrics like that kind of could go either way. Okay, these sound a little satanic as well. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm in the same vein, right? Where, and I think this honestly applies to anybody who was not the biggest Black Sabbath fan or Ozzy fan, but like you'll listen to it. I think if you just go back and listen to like a greatest hits album of theirs, that's probably better than going through their discography. One, because it just involves so many different band members throughout time, including with and without Ozzy. But secondarily, and again, at the time, they were amazing, and they're still one of the absolute greatest bands, and Ozzy's one of the best lyricists to ever live. But, you know, as time goes on, as music evolves, there's just more and some better options now. So if you go and listen to a greatest hits, Ryan and I even said, as he just mentioned, honestly, the second album, that's probably their best album. Like that has some of the really, really big hits on it, like War Pigs and Paranoid and Iron Man, if I'm not mistaken. So you got that. So I see what you're saying with they do very quickly kind of turn away from the satanic part, which good on them, because if you don't want that, then that's the way to do it. But you did yourself no favors with the original album. And I mean, honestly, like it's not even like I'm upset about that, because like if you want to get away from it, you want to get away from it, but also recognizing what might make you a hit band, you still kind of have to do. And to label it as scary music is, I guess, apt, but you're underselling what you did there for sure. But I mean, it's no harm, no foul. So, and then, yeah, they immediately get into just more what we consider traditional heavy metal, where it's still some darker lyrics, or, you know, even like things about like war or death or whatever. But it's not purely satanic anymore.
Yeah, and so the first album, by the way, it got panned by critics. Critics hated it, like as in just the music critics. Again, nothing like this had really come out before, and not that Satanism is accepted now. You got bands like Ghost and stuff like that are really popular, but especially in 1970, if you're being accused of being a satanic band, you're not going to fare well when it comes to the critics. So it got panned, it got knocked. I have a feeling, though, it gained some kind of legacy in its own right, despite what critics said, because Black Sabbath then kind of took off after this album comes out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wasn't well received. I do have a question, though. What if I told you, and you might have already looked at this, but what if I told you that this album was recorded in 2 days?
I did not know that, did not see that, had never heard that. I I mean, obviously hearing that information now, I can kind of see it because it is a shorter album and a bunch of songs are kind of like mashed together. But that's impressive. That's obvious understatement of the year, but that's impressive.
They said that they recorded it all in one day, basically in one take. If they started a song, so they would have the band members in one, Ozzy in another. The band would start, Ozzy would sing over it. They said if like they messed up in the beginning, maybe they'll, okay, you know, from the top, they'll start again. But they did it almost in one take. They recorded it in one day. They said they came in the second day and did a little bit of the mixing. They added in like the rain and the thunder sound effects in like Black Sabbath. And then Tony does this thing with his guitar where during the solos, he'll record a guitar solo and then he'll record another one over top of it. So you'll hear like two solos at the same time. And he did that day 2 as well. And after that, album was done. There they go. Black Sabbath. You have it recorded. Legendary album done in, yeah, probably less than 48 hours.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they released the self-titled album and Paranoid in the same year, no?
So that's what I'm going to look up because I did want to mention a couple things about their next album. Is the next one called Paranoid? I didn't even see it. It kind of just kept playing on Spotify.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called Paranoid.
Paranoid. It came out in...
Yeah, I think it came out like 2 months later, if I remember.
Here we go. Paranoid came out September of 1970. So
yeah, okay.
February to September.
So not 2 months, but yeah, so same year.
Something also just incredibly impressive to me anyway, is you always hear about bands. They could have 10 years to write their first album. You know, they're together for a long time, playing shows. They have a long time to write it. Let's say that their first album is successful. You then have like 2 years, maybe, to write your next one. You don't have that much time to come up with new material.
Yeah.
These guys had, 5 months or whatever, 6 months, and it's just better than their first album. I can't believe that they came up with stuff like Iron Man and War Pigs. War Pigs is just a masterpiece, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It said that they needed an additional song. Paranoid is something that they said they wrote in about 15 minutes. Tony had the guitar riff down. Ozzy hummed a couple melodies. It was their quick songs. I mean, Black Sabbath has songs that are like 10 minutes. Paranoid's not one of those. But yeah, they wrote that one in 15, 20 minutes, and there you go. Like that's talent, if you ask me. But
we've talked about it before with like going back to the Velvet Sundown or whatever the hell they were called. Where like it is seen as almost an impossibility to come out with 2 albums in the same year, let alone within 6 months, or the Velvet Sundown's occasion was 2 months, I think. But either way, maybe that's a wrong perception to have, because I think we tie the idea of taking longer means better product. But taking longer can also mean like you're overthinking things, or you take something out that maybe you really didn't need to, or whatever. So I wonder, and of course it's a case-to-case thing, I think, is what I'm learning. But if you have a generational mastermind like Ozzy Osbourne, is it almost better to just let that creativeness rip, take one, try one, and just be like, okay, maybe we could make this better, but maybe we could also fuck this up, so we're just going to let it run. So I wonder if there is a benefit to just letting it rip like that. And again, this was in the 70s when music like this didn't exist, so maybe it just takes longer to find something that hasn't already been done now. But I don't know. That makes me think. But something you did mention was the idea of using like double solos, double guitars over each other. So I went back a month and a half ago, when we were originally talking about this. I messaged you about a song that I really didn't like because of the way they balanced the audio. And I went back and listened to it again, and I still don't like it for the same reason. But I don't think it's because of overlaid guitars. So I went back to listen to it for that reason. But it's Wasp / Behind the Wall, which I also believe has NIB at the end of it, maybe. But
yeah,
either way,
Spotify, they're like combined together, the song titles, like into one long song. That confused me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the way it originally was, because Spotify doesn't seem to have the original album, but whatever. I think it's within like the first 45 seconds of the song, so I'm assuming it's Wasp. If not, it's Behind the Wall. Either way, what they do is they have this weird audio mix where it like, you know how modern day if things can come out of the right earbud or the left earbud, right? Like they traditionally just come out of both at the same frequency, the same everything, because that's normal. But you could make audio bounce just so you hear it on one side or the other, like when ASM artists are licking the ears on the microphone and you can only hear it deep inside of one side of your brain. We like that. We love that. We want more of that. But I think they did it with this. And maybe they did it with the guitars too. Maybe I'm just being ignorant, but what you notice immediately is they do it with the lyrics. And what a lot of bands will do is it'll just play the lyrics as one track, but then play part of it in the right, part of it in the left, and you won't hear shit in the other one while it's going on. What they did with this one is they just played the lyrics twice, but like a fraction of a second delayed off of each other. So you hear it in the right ear, and then like a half a second later, you'll hear it in the left ear. So it was, and I think, and the first time I heard it, it's probably on me because these earphones, I usually only wear one at a time. And then whenever I go to connect the other ones, sometimes they're desynced. So I think the first time it was desynced, but they're not this time. And I listened to it again, and it's weird. It made it really hard to focus on it. It was a bit disorienting because you're like, wow, it's like just constantly juggling your brain back and forth. I don't know. It might have just, like I said, it might have just been better off going with like a modern route. Yes, I understand that this is made in 1970. I know it's not modern, but and just use that one track bouncing between right and left instead of overlaying them, because it was just, it was like giving me vertigo or something. It was fucking up my head.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it because apparently this is stuff that I don't pick up on. I guess when I listen to a song, I just absorb it as is, and I've just accepted this is how it sounds. Because you also mentioned that Emergence by Sleep Token when we did that episode. You were like, it sounds like the beat is one step desynced or something from everything else in the song. And I realized it afterwards. It's some weird hit that he does, like where it's done on purpose, but I didn't notice it until you pointed it out. That's how it sounded. So now I have to go back and listen to this one.
You should try being neurodivergent. Because even if you don't want to notice it, it just like it hurts your brain, and something's not right and you don't know what, and then you get frustrated because you can't figure out what and it's a song that was made fucking 45 years ago.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it and see, because now I'm curious what it sounds like. But yeah, overall, I'm gonna give it based purely off the music in today's time, I'm gonna give it like a 7 for its impact and influence that it had on heavy metal forward. I mean, it's like a 9.5. I mean, it can't be understated how important Black Sabbath is to me when it comes to just heavy metal in general. And like I said, Ozzy is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. His influence on the genre is incredible.
Yeah. So I actually also put it at a 7. So ding, ding, ding. If you had it on your bingo card that we would finally get our first same rating, you win absolutely nothing. But I basically said the same thing. I said the album doesn't really do anything fantastic or over the top. But honestly, it's because it didn't have to. Because like I said earlier, it changed the formula, or it didn't overcomplicate the formula, but it changed it, is what we came to that realization of. There just wasn't music like this back then. And it's, especially for the time, it's just so expertly put together. And it's something that you can point back to as a genesis or a template for what modern metal became. Now, of course, it's still ever evolving into new things. We're going to do the Baby Metal album somewhat soon here, and that definitely breaks the mold in more than a few ways. But I think just understanding that this was all of the importance that you just said behind it, on top of just the composition of it, solid 7 out of 10. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything really below a 7 out of 10 on the album besides that audio balancing that I just talked about, but I think that song overall is still great. But I don't think there's anything that's like, other than the history of it, that's like over a 7 out of 10. But I think 7 out of 10 is very proper.
Yeah, I look at this the same way that I look at Star Wars. Star Wars A New Hope is still an incredible movie today. Is it my favorite Star Wars movie? No. Like, it's up there. There's no denying its impact on the franchise in general and just movies in general. But yeah, I wouldn't even consider it my favorite Star Wars movie, but I love it still. This is not my favorite Black Sabbath album. This is not my favorite heavy metal album, but I love it. I still think it's really good. I think it really helped them come into their own, because for me, when I think of Black Sabbath, I think about really memorable riffs like Paranoid and Iron Man. And my favorite song by them is a song called Children of the Grave. If you're just like a regular Black Sabbath fan, know, Iron Man and stuff like that, but you never heard Children of the Grave, listen to it. It's awesome. But I do think those kind of standout riffs mixed with Ozzy's like awesome vocal melodies, those really, really started to stand out with Paranoid and after. So yeah, well, I still love it. It's not my favorite, but there's no denying the impact that it had and its importance.
Yeah. So I have a few Ozzy fun facts that I threw on here in case we didn't have enough to talk about. So would you, a question. I know you're a married man with a child and a very devout husband and father. Let's pretend you're none of those things for a moment.
Okay.
Would you fuck your manager's daughter?
So Sharon Osbourne.
So, wife Sharon Osbourne is the daughter of the original manager, Don Arden. And when Don Arden dropped Ozzy, Sharon took over and later married him. We knew that part, obviously. I didn't know the manager part. That's crazy that your father drops him. And you're like, you know what? Not only am I going to sign one of the most famous inspirational artist of all time, I'm also going to let him put his dick in me and let's produce 6 beautiful children. That's great. That's so unfathomably 70s rock that my brain almost can't handle it. And the next one is, so that's a no on fucking your manager's daughter?
Depends on the context.
Fair. I would just do it. That's a power struggle I need to be winning. So I also learned that do you know where his nickname Ozzy originates, other than the obvious that it's like Osbourne shortened?
He probably said it in his book, but like I said, that was a long time ago, so no.
Yeah, so his nickname is just his last name, right? Osbourne, Ozzy. But it's because due to like speech impediments and dyslexia and other speech related issues, he couldn't really pronounce his own last name super well. So he just got bullied to hell and back in like middle school and high school about it. So he just got like one of the most recognizable names in all of rock and roll because he didn't talk too good. No, it was just people bullying the shit out of him. Yeah, it is kind of sad, but it's also like, what better way to get one over on people than to be like, yeah, you know that name you bullied me with? It's one of the most recognizable names in the history of anything now, bitch.
No, he's like one of the most influential guys in music.
Oh my God, yeah. Yes. A couple other things is he claimed that he slept with a bayonet under his bed, which, man, I gotta say, there's just gonna be so many better options. Like, you're not waking up and it's one if by land, two if by sea, Ozzy, but I respect the hell out of it. A few fun I say fun facts, but they're on the darker side, is obviously, Ozzy got kicked out of the band due to drug related things, alcohol abuse, like everything that rock and roll of that era kind of stood for. He did attempt to take his own life a number of times as a teenager. He attempted to take the life of Sharon at one point and woke up in a hospital, had no idea who, what, when, where, why. And that is kind of what kickstarted his... I don't know if he ever really got completely clean or anything for any period of time, but that is kind of what kickstarted the Ozzy that we were seeing more on TV, where he was just the lovable shambling scarecrow man walking around that couldn't speak proper English anymore. But I guess that occurrence is kind of what like really kickstarted him getting healthier. So, I mean, it's a tragic set of things to go through, but maybe it ended up with a good result. He has a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, but that is maybe the least shocking thing. And to end it on a very high note for Ozzy, again, RIP to one of the greatest to ever do it, is after he left Sabbath, or rather was kicked out of Sabbath, every single one of his solo albums that were original material, every single one of his solo albums has gone multi-platinum. Every one of them without fail. So
I can see why.
Yeah. So to say, and we talked about this a bit too, learning a bit of these more fun facts. Like his father died at a young age too, and it left Ozzy with like a lot of depression. Obviously, he had a bunch of things with drugs and alcohol, ended up in rehab a bunch of times. But we talked about it a bit with Chester Bennington, where you wonder, sadly, how much of his past and how much of that internal pain plays into the music. And it's almost like a melancholy feeling to cheer that on, because it produced some of the greatest music we've ever heard that maybe would have never even been written if it wasn't for those personal experiences. But it's on 2 occasions now that we have to have some of our best lyricists go through some of life's hardest shit. Like, you don't want somebody to have to go through that, but it's also like, if you didn't, maybe we wouldn't have war pigs. It puts a weird separation of human from creator in your brain that's hard to decipher sometimes.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but even in high school, just having an immature brain and stuff like that, I read Ozzy's book so I could hear his crazy stories, and that was pretty much it. And to get more into how he started and everything. But even then, I'm kind of reading it as like he's a character, and that's sad to say.
Yeah.
If I were to reread that, I have a much better understanding that this is a human being. You said he got bullied through childhood, had a rough childhood, the addiction struggles. I just think I almost want to reread his book, because looking at it with a new lens is, this guy is a person, husband, father, son, everything. It might be interesting to go back to. Like you said, you don't want anyone to suffer like that. And Ozzy almost built that persona that he's, he almost like a character. You know what I mean? But he was a human being as well. So good stuff to remember.
There's an episode of the Osbournes. This is the only part of that show I'll ever remember, as funny as it was. But they were looking for their cat. Their cat's name was Tiggy, like Tigggy or something like that. And Ozzy, again, this ghoul of a man who couldn't walk, speak, or really process any normal motor functions at that point. At one point, they had a coffee table that was made of glass, so you see through it to the floor, and it just had a like flower pot on it, right? Like for video watchers, like the size of this hand sanitizer bottle, which is just like a normal water bottle size, not very thick, not very tall, nothing like that. And he lifts it, they're looking for the cat, and he lifts up a flower pot to a glass table. Tiggy! It's just like, how are you not institutionalized? If this isn't like partially an act, but with him, it didn't seem like it. I think you're right, though. He leaned into that, and it made it a beautiful thing. But it's like, separate the art from the artist, and in a good way this time. I don't know. It's weird, but it does seem that those, as I say almost every episode, those personal experiences and that true emotion can't be emulated by people who haven't experienced it. And what makes a man more depressed than not getting your driver's license until 61, prior to that failing the driver's test 19 times?
He said in his book that he started riding a horse and a ride-on lawnmower to the pub because he couldn't drive. So, yeah, did you watch his last concert that he did?
I did not. I didn't watch any. I saw like a few clips here and there of it, but I haven't really seen anything.
So I saw my friend texted and asked, he's like, did you watch any of it? And I said, no. So at the time, there's only cell phone recordings out. I listened to a little bit of Crazy Train, and I'm like, you know what? Given his health condition that I've heard, and just his age, like, he doesn't sound too bad. He sounds okay. I listened to the next one, and it was Mama, I'm Coming Home, and I'm like, he sounds pretty rough. Like, that doesn't sound too great. I found out later on, though, he might not have sounded too great during Mama, I'm Coming Home because he was crying. So he had tears in his eyes. I'm assuming just because of the emotion behind that song, because I'm pretty sure that song is about Sharon when he was rehabbing and trying to, get sober. It could have been because he knew that his health was failing, because I saw an interview later on that he knew his time was coming. I think it might have been because of seeing how many people still love this guy and showed up for his concert. It could have been a combination of all these things, but to see him in tears singing Mama, I'm Coming Home to this giant crowd and everything, it got to me a little bit. It was pretty emotional. So then, hearing the news that he had passed, super sad. I don't mean to say this like in a harsh way or anything, but I think people knew that, his time was coming soon. We just
Oh yeah.
didn't expect it to be that soon, especially not after his last show and everything. So, yeah, I just wanted to end by saying absolute legend. He did, some crazy wild stuff during his time. But yeah, his influence it's unmatched.
It's everlasting for sure. And I'm just going to echo all the sentiments Ryan just said. Like I said before, this was technically about the self-titled album, or rather the 2014 remaster of it. But we just wanted to dive into a lot of things Ozzy related. Like I said, this was originally supposed to come out like the week after he passed away, as a bit of a tribute. But, life happens, such as. And I just kind of echo everything there. And it's weird because you hear all these stories about like people who are nearing the end of their time. They, one way or another, kind of know it's coming. Like I know, for example, my great uncle, the day that he passed, he was like pretty sure this is like, I think this is going to be the last one. And he got like, like a prepared last meal that he wanted, this, that, the other. And then whack, 2 hours later, he's gone. And I was like, that's how do you deal with that? First off, that has to be, I'm only 32. I don't want to think about that right now, but that is crazy. So you do wonder if him performing that, he's like, hey, maybe it's not today, but it's when you live that kind of lifestyle, it just is. But either way, Ozzy, an eternal influence, a pioneer of death metal, heavy metal, all things of that realm, an insanely talented musician, an insanely talented entertainer, somebody who went through a lot of hardships in their life and was still able to come out the mud and make something of it. So an inspirational story to people on hard times as well. And like I said, we did the self-titled album here. Just listen to a greatest hits album. Listen to the Paranoid album, even that has like a bunch of the really good hits on it. But yeah, Black Sabbath, pioneers, one of the best ever do it. Ozzy, like Ryan said, you hear that voice, there's no mistaking who it is. He started COVID back in 1970 and gave us a few years off of having to be out in reality in 2020 through 22 or whatever. But so if it wasn't for Ozzy eating that bat, me and Ryan may have never even met through streaming. So shouts out to the GOAT. Not to make light of it, obviously, but I mean, 7 out of 10 from both of us. Hard to argue that means, or that means anything other than it just is really good. So feel free to give it a listen. We should be back on our regular schedule of uploading every week. We're actually going to try and avoid this specific scenario happening again, where maybe we record a few things at a time. So if we do have to miss a week, but we planned to do that before this even hit. So we'll see. We'll see if we get to it. But next week is probably.
You want to do it?
Go ahead.
Next week? We're doing baby metal.
That's right, bitches. We are jumping off the crazy train over to some Japanese metal. So the lyrical part is going to be a bit different. It's going to be a lot of Google translating what things may or may not mean. But
I'm excited.
For something that is to wet the palate a little bit, this album, first off, baby metal alone is an insanely talented group of women. They just are. But there are 10 songs on this album. They have features from Poppy, who we're also going to cover one day. They have features from Electric Callboy, who I had never heard before, but I love the way they sound. They have more popular bands like Slaughter to Prevail, one of Ryan's favorites, Bloody Wood. Spirit Box is on there. They even have a guitar appearance by Rage Against the Machine's very own Tom Morello, and it is everything you could ever want it to be. So that will be next week. This was this week. I'm Smiggy, and this is
Ryan,
and this was Rock Rants. Thank you, everybody, for rocking with us. Don't forget to leave your comments. It helps us a lot. If there's anything you want to hear, please let us know. Thank you for spending your time with us. We love you all, and we'll see you next time.
bye.